Stay tuned for the Splash Live. It's time for the Splash Live from Civic Center TV, featuring stories from and about people like you in the greater West Bloomfield area. Simulcast on cable, 89.3 Lakes FM, social media, and the web. Now live from Green Media Center on Walnut Lake Road, it's the Splash Live.
Live, local, social, it's the Splash Live on Civic Center TV and 89.3 Lakes FM. Welcome, friends and neighbors. I'm Tyler Kieft. Thank you for joining us. The West Bloomfield Lakers hit the road on Friday looking to return to form in the penultimate game of the regular season. And this week, they looked much more like the Lakers of old. The Lakers jump over to the OAA Blue, looking to cut a losing streak short at just 2 games as they go up against Bloomfield Hills. First drive, and the Lakers are feeling it on the ground. Rushes from Jamal Shakespeare and Will Espy set up Obi Duru for a 13-yard touchdown rush. West Bloomfield strikes first and takes a 7-0 lead. WB picks up a penalty. That sets up a short kickoff. Jad Almzadi picks it up at the 30-yard line and then takes it 30 yards into plus territory. From there, the Lake Show takes care of business on defense. 3 and out for the Blackhawks, and West Bloomfield will get a second shot on offense just 2 minutes after their first series concluded. But the Hawks didn't just show up to senior night for nothing. They came to make plays. Jamal Shakespeare hits a roadblock, and then Faley Commit decides he's sick and tired of forward progress. He tosses number 2 backwards for the sack. Next play, Jackson Carver aims to the logo for Willie Edwards, but here comes Brent Brooks, stamping the play D9. West Bloomfield goes 3 and out. And then here comes the Hawks. They'll take off on a nearly 5-minute offensive drive. 5:08 left in the first. Jad Almzadi gets a solid gainer on the misdirect, and then it's 3 straight monster runs for Dakota Jancic. Bloomfield Hills hits the red zone for the first time. But that's where the Lakers make their stand. Tank Pittman got an offer from Mercyhurst during the week and gets on Friday night. Bloomfield has to settle for a field goal attempt, but it's no good for Nathan Geniak. West Bloomfield escapes a long, sustained Bloomfield Hills drive and maintains their 7-0 lead. Just before the end of the first, Lakers switching things up. Wide receiver reverse for Cam Hall. He gets some open turf and skips out for 35 yards. A few plays later, his offense pays the bill. They'll call on 1-3, and he'll take it to the house. Lakers' lead now sits at 14-0 early in the second. On the ensuing kickoff, WB sends it into open space. It takes a Laker bounce. Big mistake for Bloomfield Hills. They let it roll, and the Lakers recover the football. It's not a punt, it's West Bloomfield football. However, the West B offense, well, I guess they wanted a break. They take less than a minute to get Will Espy back beyond the goal line. That's his 7th rushing touchdown on the season, and it's 21-zip Lakers. Bloomfield Hills is looking to answer and keep this a ball game. Rocco Colosimo escapes the pressure, makes a nice pass, but just short to Jad Almzadi. That's okay because the next play would be downright unbelievable. Three split out to the right for the Hawks. Don't throw to the right. Inside it is bobbled and it is caught. Open season. Here comes Bloomfield Hills. One man to beat another one chasing. They'll get down to the 17. You want to talk about right place, right time, heads up, making a play. Put Micah Mathis on the map. Bloomfield Hills is again deep into West Bloomfield's side of the gridiron, but the Lakers make another key stop, and Geniak cannot connect on the field goal, so West Bloomfield keeps the Blackhawks scoreless. 6:20 left in the half. It's all about teamwork, baby. Carver, Shakespeare, Shannon Roshan, chop, chop. He stomps his way out of the tackle off the bomb and marches to pay dirt. Late in the half, all Lakers on defense. 2:15 remaining. They go full pirate and steal a first down rush. Then less than a minute to the break. Colosimo to the air, and Christian Banks pulls it down. Lakers take over with 35 seconds remaining, and they just have to clock the pigskin and take a break. At the half, 34-0 in favor of the Lakers. On to the third quarter. Bloomfield Hills opens it on offense. John Amzadi stuck in traffic, no problem. Snags the catch and another big play. Shortly after, back on the board goes Christian Banks. Interception number 2, plus 34 yards extra after the fact. The Lakers take over. On offense, nothing doing. West Bloomfield punts it back to the Blackhawks, but they wouldn't keep possession for long either. 4 plays later, out with Christian Banks, in with Ezekiel Davis. That's 3 straight Hawks possessions, ending with a pick, going all the way back to the second quarter. But the Lakers aren't themselves infallible. A great run from Dylan Woods is knocked loose by Drew Harst, and Bloomfield Hills gets their first big defensive break of the night. They take it into the fourth quarter, switching up the personnel. Micah Mathis now at quarterback. Desi Commit now at running back. Got to go for it on fourth down. But a miscommunication mixes up the handoff, and WB makes the big stop. They couldn't get the mercy rule to stick in the second quarter. Just over 3 minutes, however, into the fourth, Bryce Coburn stamps the paperwork with a 30-yard field goal. It's 37-0 West Bloomfield. And that, folks, is about where it would stand for the remainder of the contest. Big plays for Ezekiel Davis and WB on defense, and a nice recovery and scramble for Micah Mathis and the Blackhawks on offense. But the Coburn kick would be the only 3 points of the final 24 minutes and brings us to the final score. West Bloomfield pulls off their 3rd shutout of the season, their first since week 2, and again, that shutout is 37-0. Just a little travel involved on this one. The Lakers take it back to the Swamp for senior night this week, looking to avenge a 1-point season finale loss from a year ago in a rematch with Roseville. Follow the team all season long and into the playoffs on civiccentertv.com/LakersSports. That's also where you can watch last week's game where the Lakers defeated Bloomfield Hills 37-0. Joining me now for even more discussion on Friday's big road victory is our Laker football color analyst, Matt Gattoni. Matt, thanks for joining me today.
Yep, thank you for having me.
Glad to have you on. Another victory Monday for the West Bloomfield Lakers, now improving their record on the season to 6-2, looking to finish the year 7-2. To do that, they'll need to take care of business on Friday back at home against Roseville. But let's go back to what happened in Bloomfield Hills on Friday. From the jump, seemed like it was all Lakers, although quite a lot of fight from the Bloomfield Hills Blackhawks, despite their struggles and their situation roster-wise. A lot of injuries and a lot of players coming up late in the season into starting roles and lots of playing time.
Yeah, we didn't see Kraft at quarterback like you had mentioned throughout the broadcast, him really being that premier player on that offense for Bloomfield Hills. But they didn't necessarily have a lack of opportunities to put points up on the board. You just saw them repeatedly get in their own way once they found themselves in the red zone.
Yeah, or they just could not finish the job. They got into positions where they were able to make those key plays. And maybe from a lack of practice throughout the season, we don't really have that kind of insight into their field goal unit, their special teams front, and how it was able to set Nathan Geniak properly to make those field goals. But even that being said, the Lakers' special teams front has given some of the best kickers in the state, like Aiden O'Neill from Clarkston, some issues in recent weeks as well. So perhaps that's the reason behind some of their field goal woes that led to no score for Bloomfield Hills. But as you said, they were able to take care of business with some of their players. Micah Mathis with a brilliant recovery in the receiving corps on Friday night. Dakota Jancic was able to really take care of business both in traffic and outside of traffic against the West Bloomfield Lakers. That being said, the running defense still quite stout. In fact, that front seven was really able to get after it on Friday.
Yeah, that front seven had a dominant game, and you could see just how their ability to get to the passer just impacted even the play calling of Bloomfield Hills. But also, you got to give credit to the secondary for really making it a quiet game for Almzaldi.
Yeah, 3 picks for West Bloomfield against Clarkston. It was the first time they had any interceptions offensively all season long. And then this week against Bloomfield Hills, 3 interceptions of their own from their defense, picking off the Black Hawks. 2 of those being from Christian Banks, 1 of those late in the game from Ezekiel Davis. That really sealed the deal for West Bloomfield at that point, much beyond a blowout and in their favor on Friday as they took on the Bloomfield Hills Black Hawks in what was now a 37-0 victory. The 3rd time the Lakers have had a shutout this season, the 3rd time that the score has been 37-0. This time, however, on the road instead of those 2 others at home. Offensively, Matt, who stood out the most for us on Friday night, probably had to be Obi Duru, back in the leaderboard at running back for West Bloomfield for the first time in several weeks. 86 yards and a touchdown on the ground, including his longest being 27, but he had a few different rushes that were right around that length as well. Really important to have a guy like him that can get outside the tackles in the ground game, be an impact player, and get him back involved more heavily in that running game.
Yeah, when they can get Duru to the perimeter, they are a nightmare for opposing defenses. Because, again, like I've said on the broadcast, if you give Duru an inch, he's going to burn you for 20 yards at a minimum, because he just has the ability to put his foot in the ground and accelerate and get to top speed almost immediately.
He was 19 yards behind Will Espy and also 19 carries behind Will Espy for the number 1 rushing spot coming in to week number 8. Their competition continues this week. Will Espy now still well ahead, 18 rushes ahead of Obi Duru on the ground so far. 76 carries for Espy, 58 for Obi Duru. But Duru now leading by 22 yards, 433 yards on the ground after those 86 last week. But what was also important for the Lakers was getting some of the other guys down the depth chart involved. They had much more involvement on the ground from Joel Davis. 3 carries on Friday night, got a reception for 25 yards as well. They got Rayvon Perry involved too, and then Shannon Roshan able to grab a really nice touchdown and show some of his ability to escape and get those yards after the catch. At this point in the season, we've already seen it in recent weeks defensively. Kyron Merriweather, Ezekiel Davis, Tristan Hunter, Jamar Ray, among many others that have gotten involved and made a name for themselves in big play moments. How important is it for this offense, too, as many weapons as they already have, to get some of those other guys down the depth chart, those number 3, number 4 targets, already involved, especially as we head toward a very competitive Division I come playoff time?
Yeah, we've talked about how they need to, show a little bit more life in the passing game and expand that part of their offense a little bit. And so far, it kind of looks like Rayvon Perry and Shannon Roshan are going to be 2 of those guys that can help them do that, because they can really fly down the field and get open. And they had some really nice opportunities against Bloomfield Hills.
I'll be interested to talk to Coach Hilbers this week about the passing game on This Week in Laker Football, because Bloomfield Hills was a really interesting night. You're able to take care of business on the ground, no problem. 266 yards rushing for West Bloomfield in week number 8, averaged 7.6 yards per carry and had 4 rushing touchdowns, albeit with 2 fumbles, with a fumble involved also in that throughout the game. However, the passing game had the lowest numbers of the entire season. Just 1 passing attempt for their 2 primary quarterbacks each, Jamal Shakespeare and Jackson Carver, and then 1 passing attempt for Nathan Mafucci. My apologies. Carver had 3. It was 3 passing attempts for Carver, just 1 completion for each of their 3 quarterbacks that saw action on Friday night, and only 98 yards passing. And then, interesting statistic, over the past 3 weeks, they have by a mass majority gone to the rushing game. 387 yards passing between Bloomfield Hills, Clarkston, and Oxford games for West Bloomfield. 646 yards on the ground. The only one of those games where the Lakers led passing yards, being the majority of their offensive production, was by 2 yards against Clarkston. Any fear that this offense may be becoming more predictable because of the amount that they rush the football, or do you believe it's by design because of the 3 defenses they have faced in recent weeks?
Yeah, I'm sure Hilbers would say that he would have liked to, kind of lean on the passing game a little bit more. But the way that they were running the football and the way that the score kind of got out of hand so fast, you don't really want to keep on throwing the ball and run up the score and kind of rub the opposing team's nose in it. I think the play calling last week was more and so just because, we're up 34-0 at half. We're controlling the line of scrimmage. So let's just keep things moving along. That being said, they need to show a little bit of life this week against Roseville so that way, you kind of quell those concerns going into the playoffs.
That being said, the Lakers still able to make a lot of production. When they did go to the air, Shannon Roshan, that 52-yard touchdown, got him on the board, his first receiving touchdown of the 2025 season. Joel Davis had one reception for 25 yards. And then Rayvon Perry, two targets on the night, a 21-yard reception. The only receiver to not get a completion, despite getting at least one target on Friday, was in fact Willie Edwards. And it was a pretty close call there as Brent Brooks broke up the one target that went Willie's way on Friday night. I'd imagine we see a lot more of that on Friday, a lot more of going to the air against a team like Roseville that is a little bit more dynamic defensively and really in all three phases than Bloomfield Hills. What was really good to see was a little bit more trickery involved, some misdirection in the rushing game offensively. And then one key play in that game that I think really showed what the Lakers may be moving more towards as they advance their offense toward the latter portion of the season is the exchange between Jackson Carver, Jamal Shakespeare, and then throwing that 52-yard bomb to Shannon Roshan. How much do the Lakers need in terms of mixing up this offense to have both Carver and Shakespeare involved, at least in the backfield, but even beyond that, as quarterbacks simultaneously to keep defenses off guard?
Yeah, I mean, Shakespeare is arguably your most dynamic ball carrier as it is. The fact that he can still throw the football so accurately downfield, just like you mentioned, just gives them another dimension of their offense that makes them so dangerous. But with how he plays on defense as well, you don't necessarily want to burn him out. So I feel that it'd be best for the Lakers to go forward to just kind of, once you get in past the 50, start getting Jamal Shakespeare out there and let him maybe either throw the ball, but just get the football in his hands and let him make magic happen.
You're going to see a lot more production from him, I'd imagine, coming up. He has just 9 attempts at the quarterback position this season, just 9 passes all year. Five of those have been completions, 138 yards. A couple of those have been a touchdown. So you think about it, 40% of the time, Jamal Shakespeare's throwing the ball at quarterback. It's going to be a touchdown, pretty good numbers. That being said, still a quality season by a landslide for Jackson Carver, 49 for 87, 738 yards, and 4 touchdowns in the air for the junior quarterback. West Bloomfield got a lot to improve on still as they get toward the playoff time. This week was definitely a bounce-back week for the Lakers. That was kind of by design when you look on paper at their schedule, the last 2 weeks of the season being Bloomfield Hills and Roseville. By design, I mean in the case that after the last 2 games they had, real lucky that they have this particular matchup in week number 8, that they were able to get back out there and try to return to form. But how did they translate what happened on Friday night, taking care of business, 37-0 shutout, more or less flawless game from them, although there are some blemishes that you can look at that make it be more or less, not entirely flawless. That they have that bounce-back mentality still be in place as they approach Roseville on Friday night, because most of their really tough competition came early on into the middle portion of the season.
Yeah, Roseville's losses aren't necessarily indicative of their talent level.
No.
All 4 of their losses are to very talented teams, top 60 teams in the state. So you can't really sleep on them too much if you're the Lakers. You have to, look at what you did last week and see how you're able to dominate that game by controlling the line of scrimmage and the perimeter, and just try and put your best foot forward and do that the best you can. Granted, you're not going to be able to do that every play, but like you did last week. But the offense kind of lives and thrives off those perimeter plays. So it's up to, guys like Travis Robertson to win at the edge and propel this offense.
They were 6-2 coming into the final week of the season a year ago where Roseville. They beat West Bloomfield 49-48 on the road, a really well-coached team, a good, solid program they have in Roseville under Coach Snowden. So they're going to come in hungry. They're going to come in prepared, because this has big playoff implications potentially for them as well as they come into this game at 4-4. A win against West Bloomfield, picking up that kind of playoff points, could put them in a really good position to play some postseason football, whereas for West Bloomfield, this is really important for their initial positioning in the playoffs. We ran through some scenarios on Friday night during the halftime show. What happens if West Bloomfield wins out? If they split their games with Bloomfield Hills being a win, if they split their games with Roseville being a win and Bloomfield being a loss, or if they were to lose out and go into the playoffs, most of those scenarios see West Bloomfield go on the road. But that doesn't include the scenarios where other teams don't take care of their own business that could propel West Bloomfield into having one, maybe even two home playoff games. All that being said, what does West Bloomfield need to come into this game with the mindset of? Do they need to treat this like a game to get ready for the playoffs or a game that virtually is a playoff game?
Yeah, I'd go with the latter. I'd say treat this almost as if it is a playoff game. You're playing a playoff caliber opponent. This is seemingly a playoff game for Roseville. It's a win and you're in the playoffs. So again, playoffs start next week for Roseville. They have to treat it the same way. And, if they let it get away from them this week, it could snowball into the playoffs. So I feel it's just very important to just treat it as if the playoffs start this week and get that momentum going.
Yeah, and they're just 3 weeks removed from a very close game against Utica, a team that is in Division I and could be in range of West Bloomfield come playoff time. So they can't treat Roseville like a cupcake. They can't go into this game with the mindset that maybe they had against Oxford, maybe they brought into that second half, they let up off the gas. And this has been part of the conversation with the team over the last week or two as they approached Clarkston, and certainly as they approached the Bloomfield Hills Black Hawks. They got to treat every opponent they go up against with respect. They have to go into every single game with the same fire and motivation they had coming into the season, which was, we're the unproven team. We're the ones that are going to be underrated and underappreciated, and we got to show what we're made of. That's especially important now, as this is the point of the season, Matt, where you want your team to be playing the best football and still have those incremental improvements on the docket so that you peak at the right time and make a deep run.
Yeah, and right now, last week you saw them kind of eliminate those mental mistakes and a lot of those penalties that we've seen kind of cripple drives. Now going forward, you're playing again a very talented team, very hungry team that's playing for their playoff chances or just to increase their likelihood of having a good bracket. You have to come in, play disciplined, not turn the ball over, and not have penalties on third and fourth downs that either kill drives or extend drives for your opponents.
And you got to think about it, too, while not focusing too much on it. You're probably looking at Catholic Central, either in round number 1 or in round number 2, a top 3 team in the state, arguably the best team in the state of Michigan in 2025, a team that handily beat you in the playoffs a year ago, but you have the talent to match up against if you're playing at 100% all throughout that game, whether it comes in the first round of the playoffs, in the district finals, or later on. West Bloomfield has to be ready for that. So, Matt, as you head into the final week of the regular season, all that we know about the first 8 weeks of the season, all that we know about where West Bloomfield is in the playoff picture right now, and all that we know about the personnel and their production on the field, if you're Coach Hilbers, if you're Ken Rise, if you're LaRon Jones, the head coach, offensive and defensive coordinators, respectively, what is your message for the team overall, for that offense and for that defense?
Control the line of scrimmage. As long as the Lakers control the line of scrimmage on either side, they're right up there with any team in the state. Again, like I said, if they win the perimeter on offense, they can get their playmakers out and they can burn anyone for 20 to 30 yards or even a touchdown at any given moment. And then their pass rushers on defense, and that defense can really keep them in any single game against any opponent.
It's going to be an interesting game on Friday night. It's senior night at West Bloomfield. They weren't able to bring home a dub on homecoming night in arguably the biggest game of their entire season. Senior night has just as big of implications. Hey, it's not for a title, but down the line, if we get to Thanksgiving weekend and West Bloomfield is in place to potentially bring home the Division I championship, you could look back at week number 9 and say that game was, in fact, with a title on the line. Matt, thank you as always, and we'll see you on Friday.
Yep, thank you for having me.
In the meantime, CivicCenterTV.com/LakersSports is your home for West Bloomfield football all throughout the regular season and all throughout their playoff campaign, which will begin on Halloween Friday, October 31st. Could it be a home game? Could it be an away game? We'll talk about that with head coach Zach Hilbers on This Week in Laker Football, and then you'll see at least some of the result of what that will be made of on Friday night as West Bloomfield takes on Roseville. 7 o'clock kickoff, CivicCenterTV.com/LakersSports. The holidays are underway in Greater West Bloomfield. Today, our Hindu friends, family, and neighbors will celebrate Diwali, hosting a celebration open to the public on Middle Belt Road. Our team's Jake Schaff spoke to someone from a local Hindu temple to learn more about the holiday and to learn more about the celebration close to home.
Sundar, thank you so much for joining us today.
Namaste. Thanks for having me.
Of course,
Sure.
glad to have you with the program today. What makes this year's Diwali celebration at Sri Balaji Temple so special for the community?
So every year, Sri Balaji Temple makes sure that Diwali has been celebrated big so that the community can come together. The major event of Diwali is like win of good over evil, win of rightness over wrong. So we're making sure that people get together and celebrate this so that people can have in the mind and heart that always do the good thing and always be in the righteous path. So that's the base for having the Diwali celebration.
Very important things for everybody to remember and for everybody to do. How would you say the temple prepares for an event of this scale, balancing devotion, community, and safety?
Major thing is that we make sure that we work with every team within ourselves to make sure that whether we organize, we have a different set of volunteers to make sure we clean up the space so that everybody can park their cars in the right places and then have enough space for the fireworks, which is a major part of the Diwali celebration. We also work and make sure that fire department has given the direction that we have to use only the fireworks that can only use within the floor, that it cannot go up to the sky. So those kind of things will be done. So to make it more and more clear, we are saying that we will be giving the fireworks to the devotees so that they can celebrate rather than they bringing it up. And that's been very clearly mentioned in our advertisement and pamphlets as well, so that we will give them the free fireworks, and that makes the thing easier for everyone to manage and enjoy the festival.
That's right. Working closely with everybody from the West Bloomfield community to make sure this event goes well, which it absolutely will. And this event is open for everybody in the community. So how does the temple ensure inclusivity and welcome people from all backgrounds to join in the festivities?
Actually, this temple is more inclusive, so we don't. There's no differentiation or anything here. So we make sure everybody can come in and have their prayers done, and also when they come out, everybody all devotees will be given the fireworks for them to have fun. If they don't want to do that, they can stay there outside and still watch the people having the fun with the fireworks, and everybody will be given the boxed dinner so that they can go with the dinner also served for them. So that way, everybody is covered. There is no. It's completely an inclusive event, an inclusive festival for the entire West Bloomfield people.
Awesome. Something for everybody at this event. Now, with Diwali, what message do you hope attendees, especially children and younger generations, take away from celebrating at the temple?
As I said in the beginning, right, this festival is meant for celebrating win of good over evil, win of righteousness over the wrong. So what we are trying to seed everybody's mind, especially for the kids, is try to be a good citizen, try to be a good person, and try to be a righteous person, so that takes you the win for the entire life.
For those just joining us right now on the Splash Live, I'm talking with Sundar Parthasarathi, the organizer for the Diwali celebration at Sri Balaji Temple, which is taking place on Monday, October 20th. Now, Sundar, I am curious, what does Diwali personally mean to you, and how do you reflect on its message of light over darkness in your own life?
So, multiple things. Like, as I said to you, we want to make sure as a community, as a world, that we want to be in the right spirit. And right way spirit means where we make the things, choices as right choices for making the community to glow. So the Festival of Lights helps us to pass that message along. So we make sure, for personally, I would say, I would take a pledge myself that I'm going to be in the rituous path and the right path all my life. So every year I replayed myself, oh, I'm going to be in the right path. so which means the win comes up on the way. So this is the way I started my journey as a kid. So with the kid, Diwali is a big thing for us. And because the fireworks, the new dresses, and all the festive associated with that makes it big. So from the as a person, as a father of two kids, I start this message to my kids and also to myself to remind myself and make it big for the festive.
I'm glad to hear that the holiday means so much to you and so much to your family as well. And West Bloomfield has a very diverse community. How would you say events like this one strengthen cultural awareness and unity within West Bloomfield?
See, that makes the thing. The diversity makes one thing to understand and learn how we can live with peaceful and happy within the community together. So it's going to be, if we can see, this is the more like a start of the festive season. Like it starts with Diwali now. In a couple of weeks, we have Halloween. And then a lot of things comes up with kids going to enjoy. Like say Thanksgiving is there for the families, and then the Christmas again for the kids to enjoy. So these all things I can say the festive season starts pretty much with the Diwali this year. So it's going to be more and more for diversity and enjoy with togetherness as the community there, so that it makes more vibrant community for us.
You're absolutely right. Diwali, with all the dates lining up after that, it is the true start of the holiday season with all the other big holidays coming up right afterwards. Sounds like it's going to be a great event at the temple. Last question before we wrap things up, Sundar. Looking ahead, how does the temple plan on continuing to expand or evolve its Diwali celebrations in the future years? So
I can say myself in the personal means that this is my 10th year with the temple as an event there. So from the year one, from 10 years now, I can see how we have evolved. Each and every year, we prepare at least a month and a half before, like how we want to arrange our parking, how much we are expecting each year. Every year, the people keep growing. So we have extended parking around the backside of the temple as well. So those kind of parking is the first place, and then second space is make a secure place where people can enjoy the fireworks. These are all the things has to be done. And as a temple, we take about a month and a half or 2 months prior to start preparing for this event to make sure it's a safe, secure, and fun-filled festive for everybody in the community.
Wow, a lot of work goes into making this event happen every single year, but it's all worth it. Can't wait to see all of the fun in West Bloomfield. Sundar, thank you so much for joining us today here on the Splash Live.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
And happy Diwali to all that celebrate here in the greater West Bloomfield area. That celebration tonight at the temple on Millbelt Road right here in West Bloomfield. Appreciate them for joining us to talk to Jake a little bit about today's holiday. With all eyes set on the 2026 midterms, believe it or not, Election Day is actually right around the corner for some issues that mean quite a lot close to home. Here to tell us more about local elections on November 4th and even more happening in West Bloomfield Township is their township clerk, Debbie Binder. Clerk Binder, thank you as always for coming on the show.
My pleasure. Good morning, Tyler. Good to see you today.
Yeah, good to see you as well as we're approaching Election Day in greater West Bloomfield. Like many of the pop-up elections between the midterms and certainly in between presidential elections, not expected to be the most popular of votes out there for this time of the year. But it's really important that people understand that there are elections in place and that not everybody in West Bloomfield Township is actually eligible to vote in those elections. Clarify why that is the case for us.
Okay, so I know I always say the same thing, that we have 7 school districts within West Bloomfield Township jurisdiction, and 3 of our school districts have an election right now, as well as the people who live in the proposed village of Zacks, who have they will be electing their proposed charter commission. So those are the only people who have a precinct. So I actually had someone say to me last night that their son got a ballot and they didn't. And they were in the Walled Lake School District, who does not have an election, and the other was in the West Bloomfield School District, who does. So only voters in West Bloomfield who reside in the West Bloomfield School District, the Bloomfield Hill School District, and the Pontiac School District will have an election, as well as the people who are in the proposed village, which is currently Zacks, but all of those do reside in the West Bloomfield School District, so they will have an election. But voters who reside in any of our other school districts, Wild Lake, which is a large one, Farmington, Birmingham, or Waterford, will not have an election at this point. So when they see signs on Tuesday and they worry that they missed something, don't worry, you don't have an election. I will say we do anticipate perhaps a little bit larger turnout, because one big change since in previous years is that permanent ballot. So there are a lot of people, almost half of our voters have signed up to be on the permanent ballot list, meaning they will get a ballot in the mail for every election they're eligible to vote in, including this one. So everyone who meets those conditions will get a ballot that signed up. So I do think we will see perhaps an increase in voter turnout. And an election of this size typically is one that everyone who participates, or not, I shouldn't say everyone, that's probably too strong of a word, but the majority, I think it's been up to 91%, will participate through absentee voting.
And between redistricting and then, of course, the recent changes that have been made to precincts in West Bloomfield, reducing the overall number, how might that, particularly the changing of the precincts, potentially have an impact on this set of elections?
I think we won't see a big impact on this set of elections, other than voters who may not have received, they should have received their voter ID card, or just maybe aren't aware and go to their previous polling locations. We did try to keep most of them the same. And what we did was consolidate precincts. The law had changed that allowed the precinct sizes to go from a maximum of 2,999 registered voters up to 4,999 registered voters. Reason for that is we have seen a tremendous shift in voter habits as we've had more opportunities and options to vote, like early voting and absentee voting, and no reason absentee voting. You've seen more voters switch their habit toward those, and fewer voters are actually going to their precincts on election day. We did wait. The law came into effect in 22. We didn't implement the changes until after we saw what the 24 election turnout was and had the metrics from that to look at. But that confirmed when we saw, and literally these numbers are as round as they sound, 50% of our voters voted by absentee, 20% voted in early voting, and 30% voted in the precinct. So in looking at the number of voters that are coming into the precinct on election day, laws were changed in 22 to allow those precinct sizes to be made up of more voters and consolidate precincts, which is what we did. So you will see this election, so this will be the first election that we have gone from 26 precincts down to 20 precincts. And we did, almost everyone will have a new precinct number. Most will stay in their same polling location. So even if they don't know that they have a new precinct number, they should end up at their normal polling location. But that is not the case for everybody. So I do see that habit change will could take one election of going to the wrong location. But again, I go back to that we've seen up to 80-90% that have voted absentee for a small election like this. So I think that this will be consistent, and we have done a good job of getting the word out that people have a new polling location, and everybody in the township did receive a new voter identification card.
Tuesday, November 4th is Election Day in Greater West Bloomfield. Only in select cases, as was mentioned earlier on, a couple of the school districts in our local area have some ballot proposals, and then those in the Zox neighborhood in West Bloomfield will be voting on their charter commission as they attempt to become a village within West Bloomfield Township. More info on that and the election can be found on wbtownship.org, or of course you can follow the township on their Facebook and Instagram pages, both of those at the handle at West Bloomfield, at WB Township on Facebook, and on Instagram at WB Township for more information. Clerk Binder, with all these changes recently and with the specifics of this particular election, how has your office been working to ensure transparency and proper communication to the community so that people know if they are potentially eligible to vote in this election, and that those key changes that maybe affect them this election, maybe affect them the next one, are communicated properly and they understand where they're supposed to be and what they may need to do for future elections?
Well, I go back again, Tyler, to the statute lays out very clearly what the obligation of the clerk's office are, and those ensure and guarantee transparency. So every single voter in West Bloomfield with the consolidated precincts will have received a new voter identification card. And then we also send out applications to those who are on the permanent application list, not on the permanent ballot list, that allows them to check a box to literally request to be on the permanent ballot list. We do need to have a signature to put somebody on the permanent ballot list. So that application becomes one of the vehicles with which they can request to be on it. And we have gone up, I would say, since I came in originally from a permanent application list, I believe it was about 6,000. We're up to 23,000 that are now participating on the permanent ballot list. So we have seen that word getting out very well. I do think, though, that there will be, every election we do have some confusion about it. I drove by and I saw signs, but I didn't know I was voting. So we do anticipate that, and my staff is beyond friendly, and when we get those phone calls, they field them nicely. But everybody has been notified, and everybody has had the opportunity to join that permanent ballot list probably for the last 2-3 years. They have received that as part of their application. So we do our best when they come to the counter. We also make them aware of their options, and I do think that it does take one cycle sometimes for voters to get into the new groove, so to speak. But I do think that we do a good job getting the word out there. And in a large election, we usually do take out an ad in the paper as well, just to remind people of changes. But I would say that if there's any question, there's a couple ways to check. You can call the clerk's office at 248-451-4848. Again, it's 248-451-4848. Or you can go to the Michigan Voter Information Center through the Secretary of State, which is either easiest way is michigan.gov/vote. michigan.gov/vote, and voters can check all of their information through basically through the database. But what is important, as I mentioned, the Voter Information Center, today is the last day to register by mail or online. So if somebody does want to register for this election, and they want to do it without coming to the clerk's office, they want to be online or by mail. Today is the last day. After today, the only way to register will be in person at the clerk's office with residency verification. So they can still register that way up through 8 p.m. on Election Day. You would need to come, though, after today to the clerk's office in person with residency verification. People who wish to obtain an absentee ballot can do so up to 4 p.m. the Monday night before the election. People who register on the day of the election can also get an absentee ballot on Election Day. They would have a choice if they want to vote by absentee ballot or they want to go to their precinct. Typically, when they register on that same day, they are excited to go to the precinct and have that experience voting. But we do, as it gets later in the day, we will kind of suggest if they can't make it to their precinct in time, that they may want to choose to vote absentee ballot. But everybody who is not a same-day registrant does have to request their absentee ballot by 4 p.m. the Monday before the election. And the 4 p.m. is a hard stop. It's a statutory stop. So even though the township's open until 4:30, we can't hand out a ballot after 4 p.m. statutorily.
And just for clarification, if you are watching this segment after Monday, October 20th, that's when this has been live on the Splash proper. After Monday, October 20th, if you're seeing this segment, whether it's online or on one of our live shows being replayed and repurposed, you have to register now at that point at the clerk's office to vote in this election with residency verification at the clerk's office by 8 p.m. on Election Day, or as Clerk Binder said, for an absentee ballot by 4 p.m. on Monday, November 3rd. That is a hard deadline, Monday, November 3rd, 4 p.m. for absentee ballots. That being said, early voting still an option for those that are registered. Debbie, what do voters need to know about early voting for this election in Greater West Bloomfield?
Absolutely. It's a great point. And so early voting will be available beginning, I have it on Saturday, the second Saturday before the election. So it is October 25th through November 2nd. It is at the West Bloomfield Library, the main library, and begins on Saturday. It goes Saturday, Sunday, Monday through Friday, and then Saturday and Sunday. It is from 8:30 to 4:30 p.m. daily, except on Thursday when it's from noon to 8. And for those who may not be aware, you can actually bring your absentee ballot with you to early voting and put it through the tabulator yourself. So those who want to kind of mix the experience of having their permanent absentee ballot but still feeding it through the tabulator themselves, You may do that by either taking your ballot with you to the early voting center or to your precinct on election day. So, lots of opportunities to cast that ballot. So keep that in mind. Early voting is a nice alternative. I know we may have some people that, in November of 24, the lines were very long for early voting the entire time. We do know that it was, countywide, and I do anticipate in a large presidential election, we will continue to see that the lines on early voting are long. But I can assure you for this election, the lines won't be long. And my guess is for most of the elections in between the presidential elections, the lines won't be long like that. So, I still would, urge people to consider early voting as a great option. It really meets a need for people. As everything has gotten different, people are traveling more for work. They may work a swing shift. Whatever the reason is, if they have a vacation planned, or, we had absentee voting, but now early voting really gives them an option for somebody who wants to cast their ballot in person to go to their polling location and cast their ballot and still accommodate their work schedule or their vacation schedule. So it's very convenient. And I know in a small election like this, the staff that's working it will be very happy to see people who come in because I think they get a little bored. So I would urge people that this might be a good election to try it, and try bringing your absentee ballot with you. You can use that and put and feed it through the tabulator. They will convert it to an election day ballot when you go into the early voting center, but it's easy. You can bring it in voted. They're going to record that, and you get to put it through the tabulator yourself. So it's a great opportunity.
And plenty of opportunities to do that. It's not just the weekends before the election leading up to it. It's also each and every day during the week during that also. CivicCenterTV.com will have more information on that that will direct you to the clerk's office's website. And you can also follow the township for more information on elections and more all across social media, Facebook and Instagram at WB Township Clerk Binder. Another big story in the greater West Bloomfield area right now. Fire Station number 1 renovation is underway there. A very big project and a big moment for West Bloomfield Township as it's yet another big investment into public safety, this time on the fire department side. How excited are you and the other leaders at Town Hall for this project to get underway and bring that fire station really in one of the more central parts of our community in West Bloomfield Township and in the greater area proper into the 21st century, into 2025 with a practically brand new state-of-the-art facility?
So I am excited to see it. Obviously, it is a flagship on Orchard Lake Road, but it's a big investment. So just updating a flagship is certainly not reason enough to make that kind of investment in the community. The reality of public safety is a reason to invest, as well as ensuring the safety of our firefighters. And I don't know if anyone who's had an opportunity to see the fire station, but it really hasn't been updated since it was built. The kitchen, it definitely has a Brady Bunch look, but it also has a much older function. And in terms of everything we know and the demands on safety for our firefighters and protecting them and changing workforces, there have been many reasons that have come into play to look at updating the function of the fire station as well as the form of it. So I think we took a comprehensive look at what kind of changes need to be made. And obviously the process is still underway in looking at the design component, but there has been some we're well into it for sure. But it's looking at what meets the needs. Again, this one has met the needs for over 50 years, and we're looking at how are we going to meet the needs for the next 50 years. And I think when you talk infrastructure at any point, infrastructure right now is expensive, but infrastructure around 50 years always needs an investment. And when we look at what we really have gotten a lot of time out of the structure that exists, and we're looking at how to make sure we get that kind of time out of the next, I won't say next structure because it's a remodel more than it's not getting torn down, but we are looking at changes that need to be made to make it go for the next 50 years as well. But I think that when I take a tour of Station 1 and see, it's very clear what needs to be updated and why it needs to be updated to ensure that we have a safe environment for our firefighters, and to ensure that they are able to have the equipment and materials that they need to ensure the safety of our community. And I know that our community has spoken very loudly with their millage support that public safety is important to the community, and having our own public safety is important to the community. So that, that does take an investment, and fortunately we're able to collectively come together and support that kind of investment. So as much as it's a big investment for the community, I think it's a worthwhile investment that supports every single resident in the community, as well as making sure that we have a safe environment for our firefighters. So I think it's an exciting investment. It's an important investment, but I also think that it is a flagship visual for Orchard Lake Road. So it will be nice. And I know in looking at the design, they incorporated a little park-like walkthrough area that will provide, people that it is a common walking space, because it does connect the Kroger, let's say, that mall down to the high school. So people do walk through, and it will have a little bench and a sidewalk in front, which will maximize just the use of the area by the public, but we will also have a public safety asset that will be tremendous for the community for many years to come.
Well, it's going to be a great facility there, and there's plenty of detail already out in the public on this as well. If you want to learn more about Fire Station Number 1, go ahead and watch back some of the recent West Bloomfield Township Board meetings, as well as the West Bloomfield Township Planning Commission meeting from October 14th. Those available on demand on CivicCenterTV.com, or our recent story about the renovations, where you'll hear a little bit from Captain Jeff Latkowski and a little bit about those special designs and community spaces from West Bloomfield Fire Chief Greg Flynn. In the meantime, November 4th is Election Day in Greater West Bloomfield. Clerk Binder, thank you for giving us more information.
Okay, thank you very much, Tyler. Much appreciated.
Appreciate your time. Thank you so much. WBtownship.org is your place to go for more information. You can also call the clerk's office at 248-451-4848, or follow the township on Facebook and Instagram at WB Township. Close to home, parents in Keagle Harbor are sounding the alarm as motorists fail to yield on Orchard Lake Road, putting children in harm's way as they get on and off of the school bus throughout the week. Now the Keagle Harbor Police Department is stepping in for additional enforcement as well as education efforts. I spoke to Officer James Dennis to learn more. Officer Dennis, thanks for being on the show today.
Morning. How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Not bad.
Good to have you on to talk about this. This has been a growing concern. It sort of caught a little bit of fire on local social media in Keagle Harbor about particularly motorists during the morning and afternoon rush not paying attention or straight up ignoring buses that are stopped on Orchard Lake Road, dropping our kids off from their local school or picking them up for the school day. And so as this became a rising concern, how has the Keagle Harbor Police Department stepped in to help mitigate this issue, not only to inform motorists of what they're responsible for when school buses are nearby, but most importantly, to keep those bus stops safe for our local kids and families?
There's a difference between just hiding out and giving people tickets for it and actually being seen. So we try and be as visible as possible as we can with a patrol car on top of the bus. A lot of times we find during rush hour, people are rushing to work. So it's normally not just they're passing the school bus, they're also speeding and there's other infractions on top of it. So we're just out there enforcing it as much as we can.
And the regular enforcement, too, you usually will have officers nearby our local schools. That was definitely the case previously each and every day when Roosevelt Elementary School was active in the city of Keagle Harbor. It was not atypical to see even a squad car parked in the middle of the street there in the turn lane with their lights on, just to raise that awareness that maybe it's time to slow down, pay better attention to the rules of the road. So when there are issues like this that arise, and parents do have concerns about the safety of their kids because motorists are blowing by stopped buses with their stop signs on, how does that then change the paradigm for the local police like yours in Keagle Harbor for maybe increasing that patrol?
So Keagle, we're pretty small. Normally we have one officer on duty. So what we try and do is mitigate and hit the bus stops. We teamed up with West Bloomfield School District. Sylvan Lake is also assisting us on this. And the main problem areas like on Orchard Lake Road and Maddie Lane, where you have oncoming traffic that doesn't see, we tend to hit that every bus stop. If we can. If there's a call that comes out that's priority, obviously we have to answer that. But I tend to look at this like there is, property crime and things like that, but kids are not replaceable. So if we can be there, we're going to be there always.
And it's kind of an oddity, too, in our local area, not just in Kego, but in the rest of the Tri-Cities and in West Bloomfield, that we have a bus stop right in the heart of a main thoroughfare during those rush hour times in the morning and the evening on Orchard Lake Road, two lanes going in one direction, one in the other, typically at any point of the day. That's got to add some factor into this. Maybe motorists don't understand the rules of the road when it comes to buses fully stopped, even on a main thoroughfare like that, if they're on one of the far lanes on the right side. So even if they are all the way over on the right side, they're parked in front of maybe the Lodge or other places on Orchard Lake Road going through Kego Harbor, and they have their stop lights on. What should motorists be aware of when they see those lights come up, and to understand that they need to help make sure these kids are safe, but also that they're not going to put themselves in a position to pick up a pretty significant violation on the road?
Yeah. From what we've seen, there's maybe a lack of communication, but you have to stop even on oncoming. And the normal excuse from what I get is people saying that on a main road like that, they didn't realize they had to stop when they're on oncoming. I've even heard it's a divided street southbound on Cass in the neighborhood because it's divided by grass in the middle. People in oncoming think that they don't have to stop, and that's just not the case. A lot of times too, in fact, in the last two that we stopped, the drivers didn't have licenses. So it's kind of hard to know the laws of the road when you don't have a license.
Yeah, that's definitely for sure. And there's other factors, too, that play into even the patrol and the enforcement of these bus stop areas when there's so much traffic on Orchard Lake Road. What are some of the common issues that maybe make it a little bit difficult to enforce, particularly when it comes to ticketing these individuals and tracking them down? If someone does see somebody blowing by, even if it's one of your officers, what sort of challenges arise in identifying and stopping drivers who do illegally pass these buses at any point in our day?
Normally, if we're there, we're going to stop them. We're monitoring it. If we see them, we stop them. If we are on a call or something like that, I know West Bloomfield, I've been told by the bus drivers that West Bloomfield, some of the buses have cameras on them, and a West Bloomfield officer in West Bloomfield will actually write a ticket for the bus stop violation. That's not something we've grouped up with West Bloomfield School District because there's only certain buses that have the cameras, and you have a conflict of the bus driver trying to identify the actual driver of the vehicle and things like that. So the best thing we can do is just continue to be proactive, and there's 6 bus stops total off of Maddie Lane and Orchard Lake Road, which is really the problem spot. And we try and literally be there every single time. I was there this morning. They had late start, 2 hours late. I'm literally missing a stop right now, and my detective is out there.
And so, Officer Dennis, we want to get you back out there as soon as possible, so we'll only take a couple more minutes of your time. But as you have these issues arise, and especially given the place that this is in Kego Harbor, where this bus stop is, has there been any discussion with the West Bloomfield School District or other nearby districts that may have stops in similar situations nearby that affect our local kids of maybe moving those stops to other locations?
My knowledge, at least for the one that's in our city, the Orchard Lake and Maddie Lane, there's not really anywhere you can move it because most of the children come off of southbound Maddie Lane at Orchard. It's a dead-end street. The bus doesn't have the room to turn around down there, which is why it stops on Orchard Lake. The next stop would be way far up the road. Or we'd have kids crossing the street on Orchard Lake, which is an even bigger problem. So, I mean, at this point in time, us and Sylvan have been attacking it pretty hard at that spot. And then I actually just met up with a deputy from Oakland County Sheriff's Office today that's part of their traffic unit, and he was even helping us today.
And so drivers need to be aware of these rules. Hopefully this will help to raise some of that awareness, and they just need to ultimately be more careful, especially when they see those school buses around, assume that kids are going to be getting off of those buses, and even, as you just said, crossing that street. But for those that decide not to play along with the rules and make these violations, obviously they're already in process of being caught quite significantly in the city of Keego Harbor in recent weeks. But for those that aren't aware, just how serious of a violation is it if you pass a school bus when it is at a stop?
It is going to be a $500 fine, which is a lot, and 3 points.
Yeah.
And we're strict on this. When it comes to the kids in our city, we're not playing games on tickets. Other things you can write warnings on, speed, stuff like that. But whatever we got to do to protect these kids out here, and if that's writing big tickets, that's writing big tickets. We have no problem doing that if they're going to disobey the stop signs on the bus.
In a small town like Keego, small towns like Keego, Sylvan, even Orchard Lake, those Tri-Cities, really going to have to go out of your way to get yourself a traffic violation. That about the worst way possible you can do so. Officer Dennis, before we let you go, anything else that the community should be aware of on this matter, or lasting messages from the Keego Harbor Police Department to the greater community about this particular area of Orchard Lake Road?
Just be safe, drive safe, be vigilant. I know early in the morning it's easier to see the bus when it's still dark out because of the flashing lights on the bus and everything else. It's the later hours of the day, people rushing in at 8:30, that we have a big problem. Just know we're out there, we're enforcing it, and if we stop you, you're getting a ticket.
And it's good information to keep in mind, too, as we approach daylight saving time, and those days are going to get darker and darker later on when kids are going to be getting to those bus stops. Officer Dennis, thank you for your time and insight today.
Thank you.
That's our show. I want to remind you that television that's close to home is always online on CivicCenterTV.com and across our social media. CivicCenterTV.com, also a great place to tune in to our live stream of programming, including our 89.3 Lakes FM live stream, as we're temporarily off of the air making some renovations to our systems in the meantime. Big thank you to our entire team and our crew for making today possible, and of course to you for joining in. For our entire team at Civic Center TV, I'm Tyler Kieft, live, local, social. It's the Splash Live on Civic Center TV.